This is not a drill. At exactly 11:47 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Jamaica declared economic war on the United States, not with missiles or military threats, but with something far more devastating, a $460 million airport that could obliterate Miami's $50 billion tourism empire within 36 months. The weapon isn't visible on satellite imagery. It doesn't show up on Pentagon threat assessments, but in the boardrooms of American Airlines, Delta, and every major Florida hotel chain, executives are treating this like a code red national emergency. What you're about to hear is the classified intelligence on how a Caribbean island smaller than Rhode Island is executing the most ruthless economic warfare campaign in modern history. A surgical strike designed to redirect 23 million tourists away from American soil and straight into Jamaica's waiting arms. The war started 18 months ago. Miami has been losing ground every single day since, and they still don't understand what hit them. The weapon disguised as an airport sits on 2,400 acres of reclaimed swampland outside Kingston. To untrained eyes, it looks like standard Caribbean infrastructure development, concrete, steel, glass terminals that could belong anywhere in the tropics. But Norman Manley International Airport Phase 7 isn't standard anything. It's a precision-engineered tourism destruction device built to specifications that make Miami International look like a third-world bus station. Colonel Sarah Mitchell, that's not her real title, but it should be, commands Jamaica's Aviation Warfare Division from a bunker that officially doesn't exist. Former MIT aerospace engineer, Singapore airport consultant, and the woman who convinced European airlines to abandon Miami in favor of a Caribbean island, most of them couldn't locate on a map 2 years ago. Mitchell's weapon has 3 primary targeting systems, each calibrated to destroy a specific weakness in Miami's tourism defense network. Target System Alpha, European flight interception. Jamaica's new runway complex can handle simultaneous landings of 4 Airbus A380s. Aircraft so large they carry more passengers than many Caribbean islands see in a month. More importantly, these runways are equipped with CAT-IIC precision landing systems that allow operations in weather conditions that shut down Miami completely. When Hurricane Sarah closed Miami International for 36 hours in September 2024, Jamaica's airport operated normally. Lufthansa Flight 441, carrying 447 European tourists originally bound for Miami connections, landed in Kingston instead. Those passengers reached their Caribbean destinations faster than if Miami had been operational. That single storm proved Jamaica's weather warfare capability. European airlines noticed immediately. Target System Beta, the passenger processing annihilation complex. While Miami forces international passengers through immigration procedures that average 2.7 hours during peak season, Jamaica's biometric scanning system processes entire aircraft loads in 18 minutes. The technology was stolen, legally, from Singapore's Changi Airport and enhanced with Israeli military-grade facial recognition software. Passengers walk through sensors that read their faces faster than they can blink, cross-reference against international security databases, and approve or deny entry before they finish stepping through the doorway. European tourists posting TikTok videos call it airport magic. Miami immigration officials call it an unfair competitive advantage. Jamaica calls it customer service. Target System Gamma, the Caribbean Connection Network. This is where Jamaica's strategy becomes truly devastating to American interests. Instead of forcing tourists to fly from Europe to Miami, then Miami to their final Caribbean destination, Jamaica offers direct European connections to 17 Caribbean islands through their hub. A family from Frankfurt wanting to vacation in Barbados no longer needs to transit through American soil. They fly Lufthansa direct to Kingston, connect to Caribbean Airlines flight to Bridgetown, and complete their journey in less time than it takes to clear Miami immigration during spring break. Every passenger using Jamaica's connection network represents revenue permanently redirected away from American airports, American hotels, American restaurants, American rental car companies, and American tour operators. The economic damage is measurable, immediate, and accelerating. Miami's Wartime Cabinet, Crisis Response Protocol, March 15, 2024. A classified emergency meeting convenes in the Miami-Dade County Emergency Operations Center. This facility usually coordinates hurricane responses and terrorist threat management. Today, it's responding to economic warfare. Mayor Daniela Levine Cava chairs the session, but the real authority belongs to General Patricia Williams, director of Miami International Airport, and the woman tasked with defending South Florida's tourism empire against Caribbean insurrection. The intelligence briefing is catastrophic. European bookings to Miami down 23% year-over-year. Caribbean-bound passengers choosing Jamaica routing over Miami connections at rates that threaten the fundamental economics of Florida tourism. Hotel occupancy in Miami Beach dropping to levels not seen since the 2008 financial crisis. General Williams presents Miami's defensive options, each carrying enormous costs and uncertain outcomes. Defense Protocol 1, Infrastructure Arms Race. Miami could accelerate terminal modernization, implement competing biometric systems, and reduce connection times to match Jamaica's efficiency. Cost: $3.4 billion. Timeline: 4 years. Probability of success: questionable since Jamaica's head start and lower labor costs provide sustainable advantages. Defense Protocol 2, Economic Warfare Escalation. Miami could lobby Washington for trade restrictions, aviation treaty modifications, and regulatory barriers that force European airlines back into American routing. Cost: unknown. Timeline: uncertain. Risk: potential retaliation from European Union trade authorities. Defense Protocol 3, Surrender Terms. Miami could negotiate partnership agreements with Jamaica, essentially joining their network rather than competing against it. This would preserve some tourism revenue while acknowledging Jamaica's victory in the regional aviation war. Every option represents either massive expense or strategic defeat. General Williams realizes she's fighting an enemy that chose the battlefield, defined the rules of engagement, and achieved tactical superiority before Miami understood a war had begun. But Miami's response reveals a fundamental misunderstanding of Jamaica's strategy. This isn't about building a better airport. This is about rewriting the economic geography of Caribbean tourism. And Jamaica is winning because they're fighting a completely different war than Miami is prepared for. The European theater. Alliance warfare while Miami plans defensive strategies. Jamaica deploys diplomatic warfare across European capitals with surgical precision. Ambassador Marcus Thompson operates from Jamaica's London embassy, but his real battlefield is the boardrooms of British Airways, Virgin Atlantic, and every major European airline with Caribbean aspirations. His mission: convert European aviation executives into economic soldiers in Jamaica's war against American tourism dominance. The conversion weapon is devastatingly simple: profit margins. European airlines operating Caribbean routes through Miami face what economists call margin destruction. They pay American landing fees, American fuel costs, American ground handling charges, and American passenger facility fees. These expenses reduce profitability on routes where European carriers compete directly with subsidized American airlines on their home territory. Jamaica offers these same airlines a partnership that eliminates American middleman costs entirely. Direct Caribbean routing through Kingston with guaranteed fuel at cost, landing fees waived for the first 5 years, and access to Jamaica's passenger processing systems that reduce turnaround times from 6 hours to 90 minutes. The mathematics are irresistible. A Lufthansa Frankfurt to Jamaica to Barbados routing generates 34% higher profit margins than Frankfurt to Miami to Barbados. British Airways executives calculate that Jamaica routing adds £23 million annually to their Caribbean operations profit. But Jamaica's European strategy extends beyond individual airline partnerships. They've negotiated what intelligence analysts call the Brussels Protocol, a comprehensive aviation agreement with the European Union that provides legal protection against American interference. Under the Brussels Protocol, any U.S. attempt to restrict European airlines' access to Jamaica would constitute violation of EU sovereignty and trigger automatic trade retaliation measures. Jamaica has effectively militarized European Union trade law as a shield against American counterattacks. The protocol was signed in a ceremony that deliberately excluded American observers. European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen's statement was diplomatically polite but strategically devastating. The European Union supports aviation partnerships that provide superior service to European citizens, regardless of historical routing patterns. Translation: Europe will defend Jamaica's war against American tourism dominance as a matter of EU sovereignty. Economic Impact Assessment. Casualty reports. By December 2024, Jamaica's tourism war produces measurable economic casualties across South Florida's tourism-dependent economy. Miami International Airport reports 18% reduction in Caribbean-bound passenger traffic, forcing the closure of Terminal G's international gates and layoffs of 2,300 employees. American Airlines announces route cancellations on 6 Caribbean destinations due to reduced passenger demand through Miami connections. The hotel sector suffers parallel devastation. European tourists who previously spent an average of 1.2 nights in Miami hotels during Caribbean connection stops are bypassing Florida entirely. Miami Beach hotel occupancy drops 31% among European visitors, forcing 12 boutique properties into bankruptcy. Restaurant and retail businesses serving Miami's airport district report revenue declines exceeding 40%. Car rental agencies lose an estimated $890 million in annual revenue as fewer tourists require Miami ground transportation. Even Miami's taxi and rideshare industry suffers as European passengers disappear from arrival terminals. The economic warfare casualties extend beyond tourism into Florida's broader service economy. Cruise lines report European bookings shifting from Miami departures to Caribbean departures, as tourists prefer to fly directly to Jamaica and board ships there rather than routing through Florida. Port Everglades, Florida's primary cruise terminal, loses an estimated $1.7 billion in annual economic impact as European cruise passengers choose Caribbean embarkation over Florida embarkation. Yet the most devastating casualty isn't financial, it's psychological. Miami built its identity around being the gateway to the Caribbean. That identity is being systematically destroyed by a small island that proved gateways aren't permanent geographic advantages anymore. Florida tourism officials who spent decades assuming Miami's dominance was guaranteed by geography and infrastructure now confront a reality where convenience and customer experience matter more than historical relationships. Jamaica didn't attack Miami's strengths. They made Miami's strengths irrelevant. January 2025, Jamaica's tourism war enters its second phase with an announcement that sends shockwaves through every American tourism boardroom. The Caribbean Defense Alliance, Barbados, Trinidad, the Bahamas, Dominican Republic, and Puerto Rico sign comprehensive tourism cooperation agreements that integrate their aviation and passenger processing systems with Jamaica's network. What began as Jamaica's individual challenge to Miami has evolved into a coordinated Caribbean uprising against American tourism control. The alliance operates like a military coalition with Jamaica as supreme commander. European tourists can now book vacation packages that include multiple Caribbean destinations, all coordinated through Jamaica's digital platform, all bypassing American gateway cities entirely. A German family planning a 2-week Caribbean vacation can now fly Lufthansa direct to Kingston, spend 3 days in Jamaica, ferry to Cuba for 4 days, fly to Barbados for 3 days, take a charter flight to Trinidad for 2 days, then return to Frankfurt, all managed through a single booking system that makes Miami routing look primitively complicated. The coalition's integrated marketing targets European travel agencies with packages that are simultaneously more convenient and less expensive than Miami-routed alternatives. European tour operators report Caribbean coalition packages outselling traditional American-routed vacations by margins of 4 to 1. But the alliance's most devastating weapon against Miami is temporal warfare, strategic scheduling that makes American routing not just inconvenient, but irrational. Coalition flights from Europe are timed to arrive in the Caribbean during optimal vacation hours, early afternoon, allowing immediate resort check-in and afternoon beach time. Return flights depart late morning, maximizing tourists' final day before departure. Miami's hub-and-spoke system forces passengers to adapt to airline operational priorities rather than vacation preferences. Early morning departures from Europe, late-night arrivals in final destinations, lost vacation time dealing with connections and delays. European travel bloggers and social media influencers are creating viral content comparing Miami hell, their term with Caribbean flow, the coalition's preferred terminology. The organic marketing generated by satisfied customers provides advertising value that Miami cannot purchase at any price. March 2025. With tourism casualties mounting and no successful defensive strategies identified, Miami authorizes its final counteroffensive, Operation Gateway Restoration. The operation combines infrastructure warfare with political intervention, designed to simultaneously improve Miami's competitive position while sabotaging Jamaica's European coalition through regulatory attacks. Phase Alpha. Miami announces a $4.7 billion airport modernization program designed to match Jamaica's passenger processing efficiency while adding capacity for increased Caribbean operations. The project includes biometric immigration systems, expanded international terminals, and dedicated Caribbean connection facilities. Timeline: 30 months. Problem: Jamaica will have 30 additional months to strengthen European partnerships and expand their Caribbean coalition before Miami's improvements become operational. Phase Beta represents Miami's most aggressive tactical escalation. Working through Washington lobbying networks, Florida tourism interests pressure the Federal Aviation Administration to implement enhanced security protocols for U.S.-bound passengers connecting through Caribbean airports. The protocols would require additional screening procedures that eliminate Jamaica's speed advantages while justifying the delays as anti-terrorism measures. European airlines would face the choice of accepting longer connection times in Jamaica or returning to Miami routing. Phase Gamma targets Jamaica's financial warfare systems through banking regulations and currency controls, designed to make Caribbean digital currency transactions more difficult for American tourists. But Miami's counteroffensive faces the same fundamental problem that doomed their defensive strategies. Jamaica isn't fighting the war Miami is prepared for. While Miami invests billions in infrastructure improvements and deploys political warfare against Jamaica's systems, Jamaica executes Phase 3 of their tourism revolution, a move so strategically sophisticated that it makes previous achievements look like preliminary skirmishes. The Caribbean Coalition announces integration with African and South American aviation networks, creating what they call the Tropical Alliance. Direct flights from Ghana, Nigeria, and Kenya to Jamaica, with connections throughout the Caribbean and Central America. Direct service from Brazil, Colombia, and Argentina, all bypassing traditional American gateway cities. Jamaica's airport becomes the hub for what economists are calling the New World Triangle. Tourism and trade networks connecting Africa, South America, and the Caribbean without any American involvement. European tourists can now book vacation packages that include African safaris, Caribbean beaches, and South American adventures, all coordinated through Jamaica's digital platform. The packages are priced below what American tour operators charge for Caribbean-only vacations. Miami realizes they're not just losing the Caribbean tourism war, they're being excluded from an entirely new model of international tourism that makes American gateway cities obsolete for vast regions of the global travel market. Armistice TERMS. The Kingston Accords, September 2025. After 18 months of escalating tourism warfare, Miami requests armistice negotiations through diplomatic channels. The meetings take place in Kingston, Jamaica, symbolic acknowledgement of who won the war. The Kingston Accords establish terms that preserve some American involvement in Caribbean tourism, while acknowledging Jamaica's victory in regional aviation control. Under the Accords, Miami maintains dominance in American domestic Caribbean tourism, while conceding European and international Caribbean markets to Jamaica's coalition. American airlines receive limited access to Jamaica's connection networks in exchange for reciprocal access for Caribbean airlines to American domestic routes. Most significantly, the Accords establish Jamaica as the officially recognized Caribbean Aviation Authority, the regulatory body that coordinates international tourism throughout the region. Miami's 60-year dominance as the Caribbean's unofficial capital is replaced by Jamaica's legal authority over regional tourism governance. The economic impact is permanent and devastating to American tourism interests. Industry analysts calculate that Miami will lose $6.8 billion in annual tourism revenue by 2027, with associated job losses exceeding 34,000 positions across South Florida's tourism-dependent economy. But the Accords represent more than Miami's surrender to Jamaica. They establish a new model for economic warfare where small nations can defeat superpowers through strategic infrastructure investment, diplomatic alliance building, and superior customer experience rather than military confrontation. Jamaica proved that in the modern global economy, control of physical infrastructure matters less than control of customer relationships and convenient service delivery. They demonstrated that historical advantages can be eliminated through technological innovation and international partnership building. Most importantly, they showed that economic warfare doesn't require matching the enemy's resources. It requires making the enemy's resources irrelevant to customer decision-making. Victory Assessment. The New Caribbean Order, October 2027. 3 years after Jamaica's tourism war began, the battlefield assessment reveals complete strategic victory. European tourists visiting the Caribbean now route through Jamaica at rates exceeding 71%. Miami International Airport has permanently closed 2 international terminal buildings due to reduced Caribbean traffic. Florida's tourism industry has restructured around domestic American markets after conceding international Caribbean tourism to Jamaica's coalition. The Jamaica model spreads globally as other regions study how a small nation defeated a superpower through economic strategy rather than military confrontation. Costa Rica announces development of a Central American Tourism Command. The Maldives creates an Indian Ocean Alliance, using identical diplomatic and infrastructure strategies. Even Mediterranean islands are exploring how to capture tourism revenue that currently flows through major European hubs. Jamaica's victory produces strategic implications extending far beyond tourism. They've proven that 21st century economic warfare rewards intelligence, innovation, and international cooperation over size, historical dominance, and military power. Small nations worldwide are analyzing Jamaica's blueprint for economic independence, recognizing that strategic infrastructure investment combined with diplomatic alliance building can overcome traditional power imbalances. The transformation represents more than tourism industry restructuring. It's evidence that the global economy is shifting toward networks of smaller, more agile players who can outmaneuver large, bureaucratic systems through superior customer experience and international cooperation. Today, European tourists planning Caribbean vacations automatically consider Jamaica routing as their first option, with Miami connections viewed as expensive, inconvenient alternatives for emergency situations only. Travel agents in London, Paris, Frankfurt, and Amsterdam promote Caribbean coalition packages as premium vacation experiences, while Miami-routed alternatives are marketed as budget options for travelers willing to accept longer travel times and connection hassles in exchange for lower prices. The psychological victory is as complete as the economic victory. Miami's brand identity as gateway to the Caribbean has been replaced by Jamaica's position as the Caribbean connection, a marketing transformation that reflects permanent changes in tourist behavior and industry power structures. The tourism world war is over. Jamaica won decisively within the projected 3-year timeline, flattening Miami's Caribbean tourism empire through strategic brilliance rather than brute force confrontation. The victory establishes Jamaica as the new Caribbean tourism superpower, while providing a replicable model for economic warfare that small nations can deploy against larger adversaries worldwide. Miami's tourism empire, built over 60 years of Caribbean dominance, was systematically destroyed by a $460 million airport that proved infrastructure isn't about concrete and steel. It's about vision, strategy, and the courage to challenge assumptions about permanent power structures. The war is over. The revolution has just begun.